We're located on the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. Today is Tuesday, July the 10th, and your radio hosts today are
Robert Bean
and Tina Beatty, and we will be reading the news for today's edition of the Fayetteville Obsever, and first we have the weather.
Okay, today will be partly sunny with a high of 94. Tonight there will be a starry night with a low of 70. Tomorrow will be partly sunny, the high will be 97, a low 73. Thursday will be mostly cloudy with a thunderstorm, the high will be 89, the low 69. On Friday it will be nice with times of clouds and sun, the high will be 90, the low 68. On Saturday it will be sunny to partly cloudy with a high of 91 and a low of 70. Sunday there will be a thunderstorm possible in the afternoon, the high will be 92, the low 71. Monday, there will be an afternoon thunderstorm possible. The high will be 94, the low 74. Sunrise today was at 6:10 a.m. Sunset tonight will be at 8:32 p.m. Moonrise today at 4:36 a.m. Moonset today at 7:10 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow will be 6:10 a.m. Sunset tomorrow will be 8:32 p.m. The new moon is July 12th, the first moon July 19th. Full moon July 27th, and the last moon August 4th.
Okay, and today in history, today is Tuesday, July the 10th, the 191st day of 2018, and there are 174 days left in the year. Today's highlight: on July the 10th, 1940, during World War II, the Battle of Britain began as the Luftwaffe started attacking southern England. The Royal Air Force was ultimately victorious. In 1509, theologian John Calvin, a key figure of the Protestant Reformation, was born in Noyon, Picardy, France. In 1890, Wyoming became the 44th state. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson personally delivered the Treaty of Versailles to the Senate and urged its ratification. However, the Senate rejected it. In 1951, armistice talks aimed at ending the Korean War began at Kaesong. In 1973, the Bahamas became fully independent after 3 centuries of British colonial rule. And birthdays today, we have a birthday person, Quince Lanford. Happy birthday. You share your birthday with actor Lawrence Pressman, who's 79, singer Mavis Staples is 79, rock musician Jerry Miller from Moby Grape is 75, actress Sue Lyon is 72, folk singer Arlo Guthrie is 71, country folk singer-songwriter Cheryl Wheeler is 67, rock singer Neil Tennant from Pet Shop Boys is 64, banjo player Bella Fleck is 60, country musician Shaw Wilson from BR549 is 58, bluegrass singer-musician Tim Surratt from Balsam Range is 55, country singer Gary Laveau from Rascal Flats is 48, actor Aaron D. Spears is 47, actress Sofia Vergara is 66, and the picture today of the person with a birthday is actor Chiwetel Ejiofor. I have a little trouble with that one, who's 41. Actress Gwendolyn Yo is 41, and singer-actress Jessica Simpson is 38. And we have some applause to Elizabeth Coleman of Fayetteville, who exhibited in the University of Alabama's Exit 2018 Senior Art Show, and also to Victoria Pate of Bladenboro, who was included in the Dean's List for grades earned during the winter academic quarter at Sherman College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Congratulations.
Daybreak, Need to Know, wine tasting arts, and more. The Boarding House Tea Room in Hood Mills will have a wine tasting, music, and works by local artists during the event July 28th from 5 to 8 p.m. The event, 3903 Ellison Street, will include cheese, finger foods, and baked items available for purchase. There will be photography, art, and jewelry by local artists available for sale. This is a first-come, first-served event. Call Carla Welsh at 527-7455 to make reservations. Healthy Wednesday. The Murchison Road Community Farmers Market will host the American Red Cross, the Fayetteville Fire Department, the Salvation Army, and the Public Works Commission this week for a Healthy Wednesday. Disaster Prep Day from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Bronco Square on Murchison Road. Agencies will distribute information and some items to help the public to be ready for a natural or man-made disaster. The Red Cross is also signing up households for free smoke alarm installation. Community service providers will offer free health screenings for blood pressure, blood sugar, and STDs. Cumberland County and North Carolina farmers will have local fresh-picked produce and natural products. Vendors have eggs, processed chickens, local honey, herbs, teas, and homemade soaps. African World Peace Festival. The 4th Annual African World Peace Festival is this weekend in downtown Fayetteville. The event will feature an arts expo, free health screenings, music, and food. A 5K run walk is scheduled for Saturday. The festival kicks off Friday at 6 p.m. and continues through Sunday at 7 p.m. The festival is free and open to the public. For more information, go to africanpeacefestival.org. We want to hear from you. Please submit your events in writing at least 10 days in advance. Email calendar at fayyobsever.com or fax complete details to 486-3545. For questions, call 486-3500.
Okay, here's live wire. And where's the truck? That's what the headline is. And here's the question. Is the food truck rodeo going to start up again this year? And that's from DF in Fayetteville. Here is the answer. A representative with the Center for Economic Empowerment and Development, which sponsors Where's the Truck, said it will be held Thursdays from 5 to 9 p.m. at Manor Church, 5117 Cliffdale Road through August. CEED said it has several other food truck events in the works. And the next question, what is the number to report calls or to get on the do not call list? I keep getting all kinds of phone calls, and that's from KP and Godwin. Here's the answer. To file a complaint with the National Do Not Call Registry, go to donotcall.gov or call toll-free 888-382-1222. That's 888-382-1222. Federal Trade Commission urges people not to give out personal or financial information to telemarketers. That includes whether you own your home, alternate phone numbers, your social security number, and credit card or bank information. The FTC also recommends hanging up on robocalls. Don't respond to any instructions and don't press any numbers, even if the caller says it is to get more information. To file a complaint with the FTC, call 877-382-4357. Good information.
In brief, all of these are by Nancy McCleary. Man shot during Red Springs robbery, Red Springs. The man was injured Monday when someone tried to steal his vehicle from a store on South Main Street in Red Springs. The incident happened about 11:30 a.m. according to a news release from the Red Springs Police Department. Officers responded to a reported shooting at Hardin's grocery store at 806 South Main Street, where they found Neil Godfrey Jr., no age or address given, with a gunshot wound to his left leg and an injured pinky finger on his left hand, the release said. Godfrey told the officers that A.D. Smith Jr., 27, on the 100 block of Dallas Avenue in Red Springs, shot him and took his vehicle. Godfrey was taken to Southeastern Regional Medical Center in Lumberton. His condition was not known. Smith later turned in himself at the Red Spring Police Department, where he was charged with assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury with intent to kill, larceny of a motor vehicle, and possession of a firearm by a felon. Bail had not been set when the release was issued. Teen cyclist killed in Sampson crash, Clinton. The 17-year-old was killed Sunday when his bicycle was hit by a car as he was riding on Baptist Chapel Road in Sampson County, the North Carolina Highway Patrol said. happened at 7:57 p.m. near Dunn Road, about 10 miles north of Salemburg, according to a report filed by Trooper L.M. High Jr. Jackson G. Barefoot of Old Wrench School Road in Godwin was riding west when a westbound Chevrolet hit the bicycle from behind, according to the report. Barefoot was pronounced dead at the scene. The driver, Manly C. Williams, 51 of Acorn Lane in Autryville, was traveling about 55 miles per hour in the 55-mile-per-hour zone. Williams was charged with misdemeanor death by vehicle, failing to reduce speed, and driving while a license revoked. Sampson argument turns deadly. Clinton. An argument between two women at a home in Garland on Saturday turned deadly when one stabbed the other, the Sampson County Sheriff's Office said. Christine Crenshaw, 51 of the 11,000 block of Old Mintz Highway, was charged with murder in the death of 29-year-old Shakira Yates, a Sheriff's Office release said. Both women lived at the residence, but their relationship was not clear, according to a Sheriff's Office spokesman. Deputies were called to the home at 3:32 p.m. and found Yates inside with stab wounds. Despite medical efforts, Yates died at the scene. It was not known what started the argument. Crenshaw was booked into the Sampson County Detention Center without bail. Second arrest made in Harnett Man's slaying, Lillington. A second person wanted in the fatal shooting of Kyle W. Jarrett in June has been arrested, according to the Harnett County Sheriff's Office on Monday. Gerald Dante Valentine, 18 of Angier, is charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, attempted robbery with a dangerous weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery. Valentine and Alma Isabel Correa Portillo, 17 of Foxfield Court in Angier, was arrested and charged July 3rd with the same offenses and accused of killing Jarrett on June 21st at his home on Harley Lane in Lillington. Jarrett was pronounced dead at the scene. Valentine's bail had not been set as of Monday night.
Okay. Here's public safety today. From Cumberland, they're all Cumberland County, either arrests or break-ins. So, Markel Devontae Artis, 19, of the 6600 block of Pacific Avenue, was charged Monday with larceny by removing anti-theft device, obtaining property by false pretense, and misdemeanor possessing stolen property. Bail was set at $25,000. Devin Nicole Brown, 27, of the 500 block of Jamestown Avenue, was charged Monday with larceny. Bail was set at $1,000. Gregory Allen Davis, 38, of the 200 block of Tiffany Avenue, was charged Monday with felony conversion. Bail was set at $2,000. Terry Lee Gardner, 47, of the 1100 block of Fayetteville Avenue, was charged Monday with 4 counts each of habitual larceny and possessing stolen property. Bail was set at $4,000. Under the break-in heading, on Bunce Road, St. John Free Will Baptist Church at 956 Bunce Road reported a break-in at 2:30 a.m. Monday, nothing reported missing. On Snow Hill Road, it was reported at 7:06 p.m. Saturday, and there was nothing reported missing. From Hope Mills on Ashby Street, break-in reported at 10:30 a.m. Saturday, trampoline, water hose and high chair taken. And from Linden, Collier's Chapel Church Road reported a break-in at 7:23 a.m. Saturday, Colt 45 beer taken.
Retired teacher is seeking school board seat. A former president of the Cumberland County Association of Educators filed Monday to run for a seat on the school board. Joseph Sorsey, a retired teacher, is the second candidate to file for one of 3 at-large seats on the Board of Education. Incumbent school board member Greg West filed for re-election Friday, the first day for candidates to file. Judy Musgrave of Fayetteville and Rudy Tatum of Eastover hold the other 2 at-large seats on the board. The filing period for a school board ends at noon on August 3rd. The nonpartisan election will be in November. Sorsey served as a teacher in North Carolina for 17 years and in Pennsylvania for 20 years. He said he wants to continue to have an impact in education. I'm still passionate about public schools, especially Cumberland County schools, he said.
And here's one about a fire in Bonnie Doon. Unattended cooking is blamed for a fire that damaged a duplex home in the Bonnie Doon neighborhood on Monday afternoon. The fire in one unit at 5011 Fieldcrest Drive was reported at 5 p.m., according to a release from the Fayetteville Fire Emergency Management Department. Light smoke was visible from the structure when firefighters arrived, the release said. All the occupants were out of the unit. Firefighters had the fire under control in less than 5 minutes. A smoke detector alerted an occupant in the second unit, the release said. The Red Cross is assisting one person who was displaced, but the release did not indicate which unit was damaged. And here's another shorty. This is from Elizabeth City. Wind turbines standing on 22,000 acres of North Carolina farmland do not interfere with the Navy radar system in Virginia, according to a study. The Virginian Pilot of Norfolk reports the study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology also said a developer should not expand a 104-tower Amazon wind farm to 150 turbines as originally planned. The towers are part of Amazon's goal to produce more renewable energy. The Navy's relocatable over-the-horizon radar, located at Naval Support Activity Northwest Annex in southern Chesapeake, monitors more than 10 million square miles of airspace for the military and law enforcement agencies. Avangrid Renewables completed the wind farm in February 2017. After more than a year of operation, the latest report concludes that the original model was correct. The report could be justifying the MIT's model and the military's agreement with Avangrid rather than protecting the radar's mission, said John Dross, a physicist based in Morehead City. MIT also did the recent study. The turbines were expected to produce 208 megawatts, or enough to power 60,000 homes for a year. Avangrid Renewables will not release the amount of power actually produced after more than a year of operation, said company spokesman Paul Koppelman.
Body recovered at Bragg Lake by Drew Brooks, military editor. Fort Bragg officials on Monday recovered a body of a civilian who drowned in an on-post lake over the weekend. The body of Micah P. Lehman, 24, was recovered about 10:45 a.m. at Mott Lake, Fort Bragg, officials said. Mott Lake is off a plank road on Fort Bragg. Lehman is believed to have drowned on Sunday, officials said. First responders and divers were called to the lake about 5:45 p.m. The search for Lehman was called off Sunday night and resumed Monday at 7:30 a.m. Fort Bragg spokesman Tom McCollum said Lehman and a friend were swimming at the lake when Lehman began having difficulties and went under the water. The friend, unable to find Lehman, called first responders to the scene. McCollum said from 20 to 30 people took part in the two-day search efforts, all from Fort Bragg's fire and rescue teams. Mott Lake is a very dark lake, he said. There's a lot of brush, downed trees, mud, and muck. It's easy to get caught up in. Recreational swimming and boating are not allowed at Fort Bragg Lakes, officials said. Camping is also off limits, with the exception of approved campgrounds at Smith Lake Recreation Area. Fishing requires permits from Fort Bragg and the state. Signs at Mott Lake warn visitors against swimming, camping, jet skiing, four-wheeling, and the use of all-terrain vehicles. A spokesman for Fort Bragg said lakes are not monitored, but officials have issued approximately 150 warning tickets for people found swimming and boating on post in recent months. Starting Monday, McCollum said, officials have moved beyond warnings and will now charge swimmers and boaters with criminal trespassing, or if they are soldiers, charge them with disobeying orders in the military justice system. The criminal trespassing charge comes with a possible $200 fine, plus court costs, McCollum said. We are now going active, he said. Mott Lake is one of 50 lakes on Fort Bragg. Most are used for training purposes. We don't have the manpower to put safety patrols on every lake at Fort Bragg, McCollum said. There are no lifeguards. Things can turn tragic really fast. Military Editor Drew Brooks can be reached by emailing dbrooks@fayobserver.com or by calling 486-3567.
Okay. This is from FTCC. High-ranking administrator at Fayetteville Technical Community College is no longer on the job, and officials are not saying what led to the departure. The college verifies that Dr. David Brand is leaving his position as Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Services, FTCC spokesman Brent Michaels said in an email response to questions Monday. Effective immediately, Dr. Larry Keene, FTCC President, is assuming those duties and responsibilities until new leadership is in place. Brand's duties included oversight of the college's All-American Veterans Center, which helps guide military veterans attending the college and provides a work-study program for some of them through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Last week, FTCC acknowledged that at least some full-time Veterans Center employees had falsified certifications to the VA by overstating the amount of time that the work-study students accrued. The VA pays the wages earned by those students. The college said that 4 of the center's full-time workers had been fired over the matter, and that all 12 of the work-study participants were let go because they had discrepancies with their time cards. A former work-study student told the Fayetteville Observer last week that he lost his job even though nothing was improper about his time cards. Brand could not be reached for comment Monday. FTCC President Larry Keene did not respond to requests for an interview. Michaels, the FTCC spokesman, said Keene will not discuss ongoing personnel matters. Michaels did not answer questions of whether Brand had been fired or resigned, or whether the departure was connected with the Veterans Work-Study Program. The Observer submitted a public records request for a dismissal letter if the college had written one for Brand, which is required when employees are fired. Dismissal letters at public agencies are considered public record. In response, Michaels said FTCC has no public records that fit the request. The college is bound by both the North Carolina Public Records Act and the laws related to the confidentiality of personnel records, and the college will comply with both laws, Michaels said. Brand had held the vice president's position with FTCC since 2012. Before that, he served 24 years in the military, including as Deputy Director of Education for the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School at Fort Bragg. Last year, he was awarded the Aspen Presidential Fellowship for Community College Excellence, one of 40 to receive the award from across the country. He was also a finalist for President of Wayne Community College. Brand, Keene, and FTCC are among those named in a whistleblower lawsuit filed 2 years ago that alleges fraud and a gross waste of monies, that's in quotation marks. The lawsuit, brought by 5 former faculty members and a college employee who lost their jobs, alleges that instructors were forced to falsify grades at Brand's insistence to increase retention and graduation rates, and thus create false statistics about student success at FTCC and receive increased performance-based state funding. Earlier this month, Cumberland County Superior Court Judge Marianne Talley ordered defendants in the lawsuit to turn over FTCC computer records. And toward the end of that one.
4 more boys rescued from Thai cave by Pavolit Agenda and Stephen Wright, the Associated Press, Mao Sai, Thailand. The generals and other officials overseeing the desperate operation to rescue 12 young soccer players and their coach from a flooded cave labyrinth in Thailand's Swattern far north were only half joking when they quipped Monday that success was in the hands of the rain guy, Pra Harun. They were celebrating the second day of stunning triumph after divers guided 4 more boys Monday through tight passages and dank flooded caverns to safety. 2 days, 8 boys, read a Facebook post by the Thai Navy SEALs of the dramatic rescue that began Sunday, more than 2 weeks after the members of the Wild Boars soccer team were trapped. Another 5 still await rescue, including the team's 25-year-old coach. The 8 rescued boys were recuperating in a hospital from their ordeal, huddled together on a tiny patch of higher ground where they had sought refuge after a rainstorm flooded the massive Tonlon Nongnon cave complex as they were exploring it after soccer practice on June 23rd. Their families were being kept at a distance because of fears of infection, and the emaciated-looking boys were eating a rice-based porridge because they were still too weak to take regular food, authorities said. Officials lavished praise on the Thai and international divers who, in pairs of 2, executed the dangerous rescue mission, guiding the boys who could barely swim and had no diving experience through a treacherous 4-kilometer-long or 2.5-mile escape route that twisted and turned through the cavern. Highlighting the extreme dangers, former Thai Navy SEAL died Friday while replenishing the oxygen canisters laid along the route to the boys' damp refuge. But the chances of monsoon rain sending torrents of water into the cave and making the rescue effort too risky is never far from the minds of everyone involved in the operation. Alluding to that worry, Regional Army Commander offered his thanks Monday to the rain god, Prai Parun, imploring him to keep showing us mercy. Give us 3 more days and the Boers will come out to see the world, every one of them, Major General Masha Doryapan told a news conference punctuated by applause from the dozens of Thai and foreign journalists and others in attendance. I beg Prai Parun because the meteorological department said that from Monday on there will be continuous rain, Masha said. If I ask too much, he might not provide it, so I've been asking for 3 days. The plight of the boys, aged 11 to 16, and their coach has riveted Thailand and much of the world, from the heart-sinking news they were trapped to the first flickering video of the huddle of anxious yet smiling boys brought back by the pair of British divers who found them after penetrating deep into the sprawling cave.
I applaud you for pronouncing Thai names. I don't know where to start with them, you know. I can pronounce French names and German names, but Trump picks Kavanaugh for Supreme Court. After days of frenzied lobbying and speculation, President Donald Trump decided on federal appeals Judge Brett Kavanaugh for his second nominee to the Supreme Court, setting up a ferocious confirmation battle with Democrats as he seeks to shift the nation's highest court further to the right. Trump chose Kavanaugh to replace retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. With customary fanfare, Trump planned to unveil his choice on primetime TV. His final options were all young federal judges who could help remake the court for decades to come. With precedent-shattering rulings on issues such as abortion, guns, and health care. Top contenders had included federal appeals judges Raymond Keflage, Amy Coney Barrett, and Thomas Hardiman, as well as Kavanaugh, who is currently a federal appellate judge in the District of Columbia. Relishing the guessing game beyond the White House gates, Trump had little to say about his choice before the announcement. Some conservatives have expressed concerns about Kavanaugh, a longtime judge and former clerk for Kennedy, questioning his commitment to social issues like abortion and noting his time serving under President George W. Bush as evidence he is a more establishment choice. But his supporters have cited his experience and wide range of legal opinions. Ahead of his announcement, Trump tweeted about mistakes. This is what he said. "I have long heard that the most important decision the U.S. President can make is the election of a Supreme Court Justice. And that will be announced tonight at 9 p.m. With Democrats determined to vigorously oppose Trump's choice, the Senate confirmation battle is expected to dominate the months leading up to November's midterm elections. Senate Republicans hold only a 51-49 majority, leaving them hardly any margin if Democrats hold the line. Democratic senators running for re-election in states Trump carried in 2016 will face pressure to back his nominee. Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana said he was bracing for a tough confirmation battle as Democrats focus on abortion. Kennedy, a member of the Judiciary Committee, which will get the first chance to question the nominee, predicted a rough, tough, down-in-the-dirt, ear-pulling, nose-biting fight. That was a quote from him. Trump's success in confirming conservative judges, as well as a Supreme Court justice, has cheered Republicans amid concerns about his limited policy achievements and chaotic management style. Of the court's liberal justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 85 and Stephen Breyer turns 80 next month, so Trump may well get another opportunity to cement conservative dominance of the court for years to come. Kavanaugh is likely to be more conservative than Justice Kennedy on a range of social issues. At the top of that list is abortion. A more conservative majority could be willing to uphold state restrictions on abortion, if not overturning the 45-year-old landmark Roe v. Wade decision that established a woman's constitutional right. Kennedy's replacement also could be more willing to allow states to carry out executions and could support undoing earlier court holdings in the areas of racial discrimination in housing and the workplace. Kennedy provided a decisive vote in 2015 on an important fair housing case. While the president has been pondering his choice, his aides have been preparing for what is expected to be a tough confirmation fight. The White House said Monday that former Arizona Senator John Kyle would guide Trump's nominee through the grueling Senate process. Kyle, a former member of Republican leadership, served on the Senate Judiciary Committee before retiring in 2013. He works for the Washington-based lobbying firm Covington & Burling. The White House hopes Kyle's close ties to Senate Republicans will help smooth the path for confirmation. Trump is hoping to replicate his successful nomination of Justice Neil Gorsuch last year. The president has spent the days leading up to his announcement discussing the pros and cons of various contenders with aides and allies. In addition to Kavanaugh, in recent days, he expressed renewed interest in Hardeman, the runner-up when Trump nominated Gorsuch, and said two people with knowledge of his thinking. There's a lot more stuff about Democrats and Republicans, and let's see. The White House invited a number of senators to attend the announcement, including Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, and committee member Kennedy. Democrats who were invited but declined included Senators Joe Donnelly of Indiana, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Doug Jones of Alabama, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and Dianne Feinstein of California. Feinstein is the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. The others are Republican targets for the confirmation vote who come from Trump-won states where they face re-election this fall. And there's more little bits here about the ins and outs of this, but there's a little box at the top about Judge Kavanaugh. The current title, Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. And he was appointed that position by President George W. Bush. He's 53 years old. He has a BA law degree from Yale University. He's a Republican. His experiences: he clerked for Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, principal author of Starr Report to Congress, served as assistant to the President and White House Staff Secretary under President Bush, assumed D.C. Court in 2006. He has a wife, Ashley Estes, and 2 children.
And this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service of United Way Partner Agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University. And our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. When making charitable contributions, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call at area code 910-672-1600. Your radio hosts are
Tina Beatty
and Robert Dean, and we are proud to serve you today. Teachers discuss Civil War Perspectives by Myron B. Pitts. Wilmington, North Carolina school students are eventually going to hear a much more nuanced and complex version of the Civil War than what some of them have heard in class, or may have heard from their parents and relatives. That's what I gathered sitting in on the first couple of days of a week-long education seminar organized by the North Carolina Civil War and Reconstruction History Center. 16 teachers from across the state were selected to take part in the seminar, held mainly on the campus of the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. The challenge the state's history teachers face in teaching the war in a state that was part of the Confederacy was apparent in an ideas session held Monday morning. Alex Rowe, a Fayetteville native who teaches in Cleveland County, said he asked one of his elementary school students what he thought of civil rights figure Rosa Parks, whom the student had learned about in class. "She's cool, man, but I'm Dixie," the reply came. Angel Ledbetter, who teaches early college in Rutherford County, said she encounters students all the time who had been told the war had nothing to do with slavery. She said they viewed it similar to the American Revolution. The $65 million Civil War Center, to be built in Fayetteville as part of the state's museum system, will present the war and aftermath from multiple North Carolina perspectives, including those of enslaved Americans, women, children, and enlisted soldiers. It will contain a robust digital component that will serve as a resource for schools. Center officials are working with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on forming the basis of curriculum for 4th, 8th, and 11th graders on how the war and Reconstruction are taught. Ground on the center was broken in April. Organizers hope the first phase of the center will be completed by next year. "We hope to be up and running with our curriculum by September 2019, David Winslow, a senior consultant to the center, said. But he said no date had been set. At this week's event, teachers are hearing from the country's top experts on the war and Reconstruction. They're taking tours of historic sites related to the war in Wilmington. They will share ideas on what they think will work in the classroom. Angel Robles, who lives in Fayetteville and teaches American history at Hoke County High, said students should hear the whole story. It's important to share those positive and negative aspects, he said to the group. Teachers debated how to frame the story to younger students. Krista Noteboom, who teaches in Buncombe County, said with her 4th graders she believed you have to tell the whole story. You can't show the whole violence. She said she would not feel comfortable showing 4th graders a slide that was part of a presentation on Sunday. It depicted the deep crisscrossed lines of whip marks on the back of an African-American man showing the punishment that happened during slavery. Noteboom said she would tell the story in words instead. "I don't think the 4th graders are ready to see that," she said. Others pushed back, including Jennifer Lee Choate of New Hanover County, who said she showed it to her 5th graders, but properly framed and later in the school year when they were more grounded in the context. She said her students discovered the image on their own, which led to higher order discussions. Robles observed, kids growing up under the system of slavery would have seen the same stuff. Keith Pitchford, who teaches at Max Abbott Middle School in Fayetteville, said the image, which was taken by Union soldiers, is part of his teaching of the war to his 8th graders. They're able to handle it, he says. They want to know just how severe slavery was for black folks. That makes it very real to them. On Sunday, seminar participants toured Bellamy Mansion, a former plantation home that is on the National Register of Historic Places. They listened to a lecture there by Harry Watson, a history professor at UNC Chapel Hill, on slavery and war in North Carolina. Monday morning, Spencer Crew, a history professor at George Mason University, led a talk on the function of history and how memory and protecting memories influences narratives of the Civil War. Pitchford said the session so far had validated his approach in the classroom, and he was glad to see the college professor doing some of the same things I did. He worked at the Museum of the Cape Fear, which will be replaced by the Civil War Center, and said he has been on board with the idea of the center from the start. It's going to be a valuable asset for our county and community, he said. Columnist Myron D. Pitts can be reached by emailing mpitts@fayobserver.com or by calling 486-3559.
Okay, here's something from Hope Mills. And I don't think it's about the lake. You spend a long time reading about the lake every week. That seems to be resolved. Excuse me, this is about signs. Hope Mills officials want to put some teeth into the town's current sign ordinance. So on Monday night, the Hope Mills Board of Commissioners listened, discussed and debated the recommendations presented by Chancellor McLaughlin, the town's Development and Planning Administrator. Our ordinance can be strengthened a lot, McLaughlin told Mayor Jackie Warner and the 5-member board during a work session that preceded the regular meeting. For this third work session on the matter since March 2017, commissioners had directed staff to focus on ground signs, materials, grace periods of compliance, and billboards. Commissioner Jerry Legg asked McLaughlin if the board should limit the height of signs in the ordinance, and McLaughlin replied, "That's up to you guys. As long as we're not regulating content, you can go in any direction you want." Previously, the board had adopted an amendment that would lower freestanding signs to 30 feet. Current regulations include setbacks of up to 5 feet on a 5-foot sign, 5 to 15 feet on a 10-foot sign, and 15 to 30 feet on a 15-foot sign. As proposed, those setbacks would be tweaked to a setback of 5 feet for up to a height of 5 feet, a 20-foot setback for 5 to 10 feet in height, and a 35-foot setback for 10 to 30 feet in height. That amendment to the current setback ratios still would allow for higher signs according to the presentation, while keeping most signs along the highways at 5 feet in height. "We're trying to push for a uniform nature," McLaughlin said. One proposal recommends that temporary and flag signs only be allowed for up to 2 weeks before a grand opening of a business. After some discussion, the recommendation was made that the business owners of existing signs already grandfathered in would have up to 5 years of a grace period to make any changes to meet city code. "As soon as you go into this change," McLaughlin said, "new business has to comply immediately." There are no existing regulations in the Hope Mills sign ordinance that addresses materials for signs. McLaughlin's recommendation would be a requirement that all signs tied to the same development, such as a retail or shopping center, be of similar graphic character, and in that regard they would be compatible with a unifying architectural theme of the buildings on site. Another proposal would be to require all signs, whether one promoting a small mom-and-pop business or a large operation, be constructed by a professional company. Town Attorney Dan Hartzog said he would need to look into the proposal to have all signs made by a professional. That, he told the board, would constitute a restraint in trade. Businesses would have 5 years to get into compliance with the new ordinance based on the board's recommendation. As for billboards, those would be restricted to areas not central to the core of Hope Mills. The consensus was that billboards be restricted to the interstate. McLaughlin asked for and received authority from commissioners to research ways to enforce the proposed revisions in the town's ordinance. What we don't have, he said, we don't have the teeth to enforce it. During the public commitments portion of the regular meeting, local developer Joe Riddle said he didn't know where the town was trying to go with the sign ordinance. He manages the Hope Mills Plaza and said he was uncertain if the two on-site pylons would meet the revised ordinance. The Cumberland County Planning Board will now review and vote on the recommended amendments before the revised ordinance returns for vote by the town commissioners, who are Jesse Bellflowers, Meg Larson, Pat Edwards, Mike Mitchell, and Legg. That, Warner said, could come in September. In other business, the board discussed possible regulations for a food truck ordinance. Among those regulations, operators must have authorization from the property owner and would pay an annual permit fee of $50 to the town. Every approval of a food truck location would come through the town. And the board considered a charter amendment to alter the terms served by board members to 4-year staggered terms. The ordinance would be on the ballot and take effect by a majority of Hope Mills voters in the November election.
And China build anti-U.S. alliance by Catherine Rampell. President Trump is right about one thing. China really has been stealing many of America's most valuable ideas. For years, the Chinese government turned a blind eye to counterfeited U.S. luxury goods, bootleg Hollywood films, fake Apple stores, trade secrets pilfered from cutting-edge U.S. tech companies. It forced U.S. firms to hand over their technology that they wanted to operate in China. Now the Chinese government has decided to borrow one of our best foreign policy ideas too, banding together with allies to punish a cheating, trade-obstructing bully. On Friday, the Trump administration unilaterally imposed tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods. Trump has said additional tariffs on hundreds of billions in Chinese goods are in the pipeline too. Alas, the tariffs will probably punish us and our allies more than they'll hurt China. Because of some poor choices by Trump trade officials, the tariffs mostly miss Chinese companies and instead target U.S. and other non-Chinese multinational corporations operating in China, according to an analysis from the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Nonetheless, the Chinese government feels it must respond to this and Trump's other big, bad protectionist measures. So it's doing two big things. First, it's retaliating with tit-for-tat tariffs on U.S.-made products, including soybeans, cars, pork, dairy, and other goods disproportionately made in Trump country. Second, China is trying to leverage its purported victimhood to isolate the United States and rally Trump's other trade war victims into a new anti-American alliance. Last month, the Chinese Commerce Ministry condemned Trump's trade war and called on all countries to take joint action, resolutely put an end to this outdated and regressive behavior, and firmly defend the common interest of mankind. Now, this all sounds vaguely familiar. It's because China's strategy is very similar to the one the United States had not long ago devised to keep China in line. That's right. Before the misfired tariffs and counter-tariffs and counter-counter-tariffs, the United States had an actual plan for dealing with China's misbehavior. It involved marshaling some of the many other countries harmed by China's trade barriers and intellectual property theft. After all, U.S. companies weren't the only victims of China's abusive trade practices. Businesses and workers across Europe, Japan, Canada, Australia, and elsewhere had long been complaining too. And so they formed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This 12-party trade pact, signed in 2016, was designed to liberalize trade among the countries that were signatories, yes, but it also explicitly was about containing China's influence and preventing Beijing from writing the rules of the road on intellectual property, labor, and environmental standards. One of Trump's first acts in office, however, was to withdraw us from this pact. Since then, he has done his darndest to alienate pretty much everyone. The Europeans have so far reportedly rejected Chinese overtures, but it's clear our unilateralism and contempt for international trade rules have given China an opening that should never have existed in the first place. Meanwhile, Trump's temper tantrum seems to have driven China closer to other countries it had been strained in relationships with, such as India and Japan. Trump has also unwittingly given a shot of adrenaline to the 16-party Asian regional trade deal that would cover half the world's economy. Clearly, Beijing knows a good idea when it sees one. Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell's email address is crampell@washpost.com. You can follow her on Twitter @crampell.
Okay, and here is the Observer's editorial today. Sidewalks finally get a lift on the city's priority list. We know we'll be surprised by some of the stories readers ask us to pursue in our new Fay What series, but the suggestion to do a story about the miseries of pedestrian life in our city, submitted by a couple of readers, was one we expected. We're still glad they asked, though, because there's actually some good news for a change. Efforts already underway are going to make this a more walkable city, at least by a little bit. But we'll still have a long way to go. We richly deserved last year's confirmation by a transportation company that this is the least walkable city in the country. Anyone who's tried to walk anywhere in the city outside of downtown already knew it. There are sidewalks along only 20% of the roadways in the city. Some of our busiest, most congested roads, like Skybow Road, for one horrific example, have no sidewalks at all. Other high-traffic routes, like Morganton Road in Haymont, only have sidewalks on one side. Many of our busy intersections lack pedestrian accommodations, like buttons to trigger a crossing light. We published pedestrian fatality stories far too often, and the reasons are clear. Until recently, the city had to be pulled, kicking and screaming, into any serious measures to improve pedestrians' lives and safety. Sidewalks, city leaders regularly proclaimed, are expensive, and the city has a lot of expensive priorities. It's remarkable, but there's still an ongoing argument over whether developers should be compelled to install sidewalks in all new neighborhoods. That's not the way a city with more than 200,000 residents normally responds to its residents' needs. But public pressure has been relentless, no surprise, and our elected leaders have gotten the hint that this is a high voter priority. The City Council approved a comprehensive pedestrian planning study in May, and city transportation planners have already compiled a list of more than 100 sidewalk projects to be completed in the next 20 years at a cost of more than $20 million. That's an average of about $1 million a year, a substantial increase from 2010, when the city spent about $350,000 on sidewalks, or even 2016, when it spent $650,000. John McNeil, the Fayetteville traffic planner who coordinated the May study, says the city has moved sidewalks way up on its priority list. Historically, sidewalks have not been as high a priority for construction as they have been in the last few years, he said. Council has made not only sidewalks, but all pedestrian accommodations a priority to improve transportation opportunities for all modes within our community. McNeil says he's especially watchful for what many people call goat paths along major roads, well-worn roadside trails that clearly point out where sidewalks ought to be. That's like a no-brainer, he said. If you see that by the roadway, it's obviously as good place to put a sidewalk. Rochelle Freeman, one of the readers suggesting the sidewalk story, says, Fayetteville must go to the next level. Sidewalks create the fabric of what could be one of the greatest cities in the state. We agree, but even at $1 million a year, the city has an enormous catch-up task at hand, most notably along its fast-growing prime shopping district around Skybow Road. And did we mention bicycle transportation needs? We need to have that discussion too, because bicycling in Fayetteville makes walking look downright safe. The more cyclists we can put on our roads, the less congested they'll become. It's the next step, and it's time for some serious discussion.
Haiti Violence Council's Mission Trip by Greg Barnes, staff writer. Violence that erupted in Haiti last weekend over calls to increase a gasoline tax by 50% caused a Snyder Memorial Baptist Church mission trip to be canceled en route. Greg West, who was among those leading the trip, said the group of 4 adults and 5 teenagers first learned about the violence after arriving at Raleigh-Durham International Airport early Saturday. West, a Cumberland County School Board member, said an agent for JetBlue Airlines told the group that the first 2 flights to Haiti were being canceled because of the violent protest. West said the group had carried with it mounds of luggage, including everything from hammers and circular saws to recreation equipment. He said the group decided that it would fly to Fort Lauderdale and make a decision there on whether to continue to Haiti. As it turned out, the airlines made the decision for the group by canceling all flights to the country that day. The flights have since restarted. West said it would have been his 3rd trip to Haiti. This time, the group was going to provide Haitians with a week-long vacation Bible school where they would do recreational activities and arts and crafts in the mornings and carpentry in the afternoons. Instead, the group decided it was safer to return home. West said it took 3 trips to get everyone back to Fayetteville, the last group arriving about 24 hours later. West said some of the teenagers had tears in their eyes when told they were going to have to turn around. Some of them had been on mission trips to Haiti before and had made good friends there, he said. Even though the violence has subsided, West said he doubts whether the trip can be rescheduled because so much planning had to go into it beforehand. But the group hopes to go again someday. There's so much need then there, West said. There's immediate reward. You can make a difference and see a difference.
Okay, we still have time for a little something, don't we? That'll work. We can do. Okay. Governor Roy Cooper has signed the only piece of legislation the General Assembly had on his desk when it adjourned, one that restored early in-person voting on the Saturday before Election Day, this year only. Cooper said Monday he has signed the bill which changed a previous measure the legislature passed despite the governor's veto. The previous measure shifted starting and ending dates for early voting periods so it would end the Friday before the election. Cooper and his allies said eliminating Saturday and making other changes would make it harder for people to vote. Republicans decided in the latest bill to add Saturday voting, but just for 2018. That measure also makes it easier for Hyde County to meet new voting time requirements on Ocracoke Island. Well, Ocracoke, I've been there.
And this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC, Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. When making charitable contributions, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. That's P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call at area code 910-672-1600. That's area code 910-672-1600. The radio hosts this morning are
Tina Beatty
and Robert Bean, and we are proud to serve you. And it's coming up on the top of the hour, time for the obituaries.
Okay, we have a lot of death notices, and then I'll pass it over and you can finish. Okay? Ready? Okay, here are the death notices. The following deaths have been reported. Upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Observer will have more complete information. From Cumberland County, Sandra M. Hollers, 72 of Spring Lake, Adcock Funeral Home and Crematory, Spring Lake. Margaret Backlund, 78 of Fayetteville, Lafayette Funeral Home. Lawrence J. Aguirre, 67 of Fayetteville, Rogers and Breese Funeral Home. James A. Patton, 80 of Fayetteville, Cunningham and Sons Mortuary. Joseph D. Watts Jr., 73 of Hope Mills, Cunningham and Sons. And Amber N. Johnson, 35 of Linden, Western Dunn Funeral Home in Irwin. And Cornell L. Robertson, 24 of Fayetteville, Unity Funeral Services. And from the region, David E. Lockamy, 84 of Sea Level, formerly of Johnson, Sampson County, sorry, I'll get it out in a minute, Crumpler Honeycutt Funeral Home. Miss Cynthia Booth, 56 of St. Paul's, McCoy and Sons Mortuary. Micah Paul Lehman, 24 of Rayford, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Jackson Glenn Barefoot, 17 of Godwin, Skinner and Smith Funeral Home. Donald Sluder Jr., 50 of Stedman, Butler and Son Funeral Home, Roseboro. David Owens Smith, 58 of Aberdeen, Richard Bowles Funeral Service. Billy Craig Carter, 47 of Sanford, Smith Funeral Home in Broadway. Toriano Tory Cook, 39 of Rayford, Buey Funeral Home. Roy Bell, 66 of Raleigh, formerly of Fayetteville, Weissman Mortuary. And Roosevelt L. Daniel Jr., 75 of Rayford, Covenant Funeral Home. It's going to be a lot of obituaries tomorrow and the next day. Here we go with Cumberland County. From Fayetteville, Mrs. Eula Agnes Dale, 95 of Fayetteville, was called to heaven to be with her Lord and Savior on Sunday, July the 8th. The family will receive friends from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon, Wednesday, July the 11th, in Cedar Creek Baptist Church. A funeral service will immediately follow at the church, with Dr. Bruce Martin and Dr. John Prevert officiating. Burial will follow in the service in the church cemetery. I think that there was an extra word in there. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the music department. Cedar Creek Baptist Church, 4170 Tabor Church Road, Fayetteville 28312, and services entrusted to Rogers and Breese. And Fayetteville, Ms. Leary Jean Jones King, age 68 of Fayetteville, departed this life on Sunday, July 8th at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center, surrounded by her children. Graveside services will be held Thursday, July 12th at 2:30 p.m. at Lafayette Memorial Park on Ramsey Street. Viewing will take place at Weissman Mortuary prior to the service between 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Fayetteville, Mrs. Ruth Krill Trussell, that's Krill, K-R-I-L-L-E, Trussell, 83 of Fayetteville, passed away on Thursday, July 5th. She was, The family will receive friends from 4 to 6 p.m. Wednesday, July 1st, at Rogers and Breese Funeral Home, with a funeral service to immediately follow in the chapel. Burial will be held at 11 a.m. Thursday, July 12th, at Main Post Cemetery on Fort Bragg, and Rogers and Breese are in charge of arrangements. And from Eastover, Elijah McMillan, 81 of Eastover, died July 6th. Funeral is Wednesday, 2 p.m., Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. Viewing is at the funeral home, Tuesday, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., Burial Lafayette Memorial Park, and Weissman Mortuary is in charge.
region and elsewhere. Roosevelt Lanson Daniel Jr., 75, of Rayford, died Saturday, July 7, 2018. The funeral will be held Thursday at 1 p.m. at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church. The viewing will be at Covenant Funeral Home Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and the burial will be at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church Cemetery. Service is entrusted to Covenant Funeral Home. Richland Chavis, 46, of Maxton, died Sunday, July 8, 2018. The funeral will be held Thursday at 3 p.m. at Cherokee Chapel Holiness Methodist Church. The visitation will be at Richard Boyle's funeral service Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and the burial will be at Cherokee Chapel Holiness Methodist Church. Service is entrusted to Richard Boyle's funeral service. Richard Allen Dick Snow, age 93, of Lumberton, passed away Monday, July 9, 2018, at his home at Wesley Pines Retirement Community in Lumberton. The funeral service will be held on Thursday, July 12, 2018, at 11 a.m. at First Presbyterian Church in Lumberton, the Reverend David Ruth and Reverend Eva Ruth officiating. Visitation will follow in the fellowship hall. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to First Presbyterian Church, P.O. Box 1061, Lumberton, North Carolina 28359, or to Wesley Pines Benevolent Care-a-thon, 1000 Wesley Pines Road, Lumberton, North Carolina 28358. Condolences may be made by visiting floydmortuary.net. Mr. Snow was a military veteran. Donnie Mae Owens, 81, of 213 Forest Trail in Clinton, died Friday, July 6, 2018. Funeral will be held Wednesday at noon at First Missionary Baptist Church in Roseboro. Viewing will be at Butler and Son Funeral Home in Roseboro Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. The burial will be at Roseboro Cemetery. Service is entrusted to Butler and Son Funeral Home. And that concludes today's obituary.
Okay, and here is Billy Graham. Question today. I grew up in a Christian home, but when I got out into the world and began to interact with Christians, I was disappointed to see that many do not live in a manner that brings glory to Jesus. Can a hypocritical Christian really belong to Jesus? And that's signed H.C. And here's the answer. Christians are imperfect, and some who claim to follow Jesus are far from his teaching. We cannot let hypocrisy divert us or keep us from Christ. Christians will sometimes falter in their walk with Christ, but Christ never falters. We must not put our trust in people. The object of our faith is in Christ alone. People will disappoint us, but Christ never brings disappointment. Grow in him not by following people, but by following his word, the Bible. Understand his teaching and examine his life. Don't get sidetracked with disappointment in others. Live your life consistently. This is what he expects you to do as his follower. Do others see something of Christ, his love, his joy, his peace in your life? Jesus Christ is the complete fulfillment, example, and demonstration of perfection, and he tells us to follow him. While we will never attain perfection in this life, we are told to walk in his footsteps and strive to please him in everything we do. This is only possible when we stay connected to the source of all things good. The Bible says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. And that's from John chapter 15 verse 5. When a true believer stumbles and sins, God's Holy Spirit brings conviction and turns the individual to repentance. This is what restores our souls and clears the way for fellowship with him.
Dear Abby, with Gene Phillips, old friend slow to follow up on attempt to reconnect. Dear Abby, I recently reconnected with my best friend from high school. Moved out upstate at the age of 30 and we lost touch. Turns out she lives about 17 miles from me. Neither of us has married or had children. Someone told me where she works and I called her. She called back the following weekend and we talked for a couple of hours. It was a good conversation, and it ended with her saying she would be in touch in the next couple of months. We had discussed getting together for lunch. It's been almost 4 months, and I'm puzzled as to why I have not heard from her. Should I let it go or contact her once more? It bothers me that she doesn't seem to want to get together and hasn't told me why. Any suggestions? Reconnecting in the West. Dear Reconnecting, there could be any number of reasons why your old friend let this slide. Contact her again and remind her that you had discussed having lunch together. Her response, or lack of one, will tell you she's really interested. Dear Abby, an issue needs addressing regarding same-sex marriage, and I hope you will share this with your readers. When asking someone about his or her marital status, please keep in mind that when the person responds married, it may not necessarily mean to a person of the opposite sex. It would be better to ask, what is your spouse's name, instead of automatically saying his name is. While dealing with customer service recently, the service representative kept saying your partner every time I said husband. After 3 corrections, I emphatically stated my husband, and she begrudgingly finished our transaction. Yes, I did speak to her supervisor. Partner implies being in a business of some type. I know some people refer to their spouses as partners, but not everyone does. Thanks for printing this, Abby. Spouses, not partners, in Delaware. Dear S, not P. The world is changing quickly, and not everyone has been able to keep up with it. Customer service representative should have picked up on the fact that you preferred to refer to your spouse as husband the first time you said it. You should not have had to remind her 3 times. However, because you did, you were right to talk to a supervisor so the woman could be counseled and will, one hopes, be more sensitive in the future. Dear Abby, my 15-year-old granddaughter is being verbally abused by her dad, who has joint custody. He makes her cry every time she spends time with him. Also, there often is not enough food in the house. As a grandmother, what can I do to protect my granddaughter? She needs help. Dear, she needs help. Your granddaughter's father may have joint custody, but because he is verbally abusive and doesn't have enough food in the house to feed her, her daughter may have to take him back to court and get a modification of the custody order. Because your granddaughter is now 15, she has a right to be heard on the subject. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabby.com or P.O. Box 69440, Los Angeles, California 90069. Universal Useless.
Oh, it's horoscope time. And we do have a birthday person today. Quinn Slanford, it's your birthday, and this is a happy birthday to you. This is your personal horoscope. Born today, you are not always the most consistent individual in your private life and personal affairs, but when it comes to work, you are as reliable and predictable as one can be, and apply yourself in a conscientious manner. And the rest of you Cancers, you may find yourself immersed in something that requires you to adjust rapidly changing circumstances with no warning. Leo, you must take care that all of your calculations today are accurate, or you will find yourself missing out on something you need. Virgo, you may have to jump in and do something entirely new today, but you can quickly catch up with those who have experience and boast of expertise. Libra, you've been playing a guessing game for a long time now, and today you'll want to come up with some definite answers. Do your homework. Scorpio, the stakes are raised today and you find yourself surrounded by those who are eager to give you assistance, if you ask for it. Sagittarius, your plans may fall through, but in the end you'll be happy you had the opportunity to improvise. Others follow your lead. Capricorn, you may feel responsible for something that in fact was not your doing. Still, you should be able to set things right given enough time. Aquarius, anticipation can be grueling today as you expect something to come your way for which you've been yearning for some time. Pisces, something out of the ordinary propels you forward at a rapid pace. You may be surprised to learn where you're headed. Aries, someone is trying to surprise you in a way that is not likely to go over well. You should be able to nip the whole thing in the bud. Taurus, You can put your creativity to work in a new way today. A long-time ally may, however, express doubts and withdraw support, but only temporarily. And finally, for all us Geminis, something unusual makes you realize all is for the best.
Support groups for Tuesdays. Adult Children of Alcoholics and Codependency meets from 1 to 2 p.m. at Friends and Recovery Group, Snyder Memorial Baptist Church, room B1035 on 701 Westmont Drive. For more information, you can call 988-6858. Al-Anon Serenity Seekers Group meets at noon at 109 Bradford Avenue and at 6:30 p.m. at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton. There's also a 7 p.m. meeting at Hay Street UMC on 320 Hay Street. For more information, call 850-1444. Takeoff Pound Sensibly meets at 5:30 p.m. at West End Baptist Church Fellowship Hall on 805 West Drive in Lumberton, at 5:30 p.m. at Coach United Methodist Church on 288 East South Street, at 6 p.m. on Raleigh Road Presbyterian Church, 208 South Raleigh Road, 6 p.m. at College Lakes Recreation Center on 4945 Rose Hill Road, and at 6:30 p.m. at Dominion Church on 1874 Cedar Creek Road. For more information about Takeoff Pound Sensibly, call 1-800-932-8677 or go to their website, tops.org, tops.org. Unique Surviving Sisters meets at 6 p.m. at Obie Lee Community Education Center at Gibson Cancer Center on 1200 Pine Run Drive in Lumberton. This is a group for women with cancers of the reproductive system. For more information, call 671-5730. Alcoholics Anonymous has several meetings on Tuesday. There are 7 a.m., noon, 5:30, and 8 p.m. meetings at 626 Sandalwood Drive. There are noon, 5:30, and 7 p.m. meetings at 604 German Street. Holy Trinity Church on 1601 Rayford Road has a noon meeting. There are noon and 6:30 p.m. meetings at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton. Trinity United Methodist Church on 6974 Rayford Road has an 8 p.m. meeting. Manna Church on 5117 Cliffdale Road has an 8 p.m. meeting. First Baptist Church on 416 South Main Street in Fairmont has an 8 p.m. meeting. There's an 8 p.m. meeting across from Falcon Home in Red Springs. There's an 8 p.m. meeting at 40 Marion Road in Lumberton. Alcoholics Anonymous hotlines are 678-8733 or 678-8002. Al-Anon meets at 6:30 p.m. at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton and 7 p.m. at 320 Hay Street. For more information, call 678-8002. Narcotics Anonymous. To find weekly meeting times and locations, call 866-418-9500 or go to the website crna.org. Diabetes Management Clinic meets from 8 a.m. to noon at Better Health of Cumberland County on 1422 Bragg Boulevard. For more information, call 483-7534. The Autism Society of Cumberland County Autism Lunch Club Support Group meets at 11:30 a.m. at various restaurants. You can call for locations at 826-3005. You can also visit the website autismcc.org. This group is for families of adolescents and adults with autism. Facing Forward meets from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in Cape Fear Valley Cancer Center Conference Room. This is for women living with cancer. It discusses topics and issues dealing with women's wellness. For more information, call 615-6791. Native Angels Home Care and Hospice Bereavement Support Group meets from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at 2008 Litho Place. Chaplain Teresa Strickland can provide more information. You can call her at 316-6742. Lupus Support for Patients and Family Members meets from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, All-American Homes on 6920 Cliffdale Road. For information, contact the Lupus Foundation of America at 877-849-8271 or go to the website lupusnc.org, lupusnc.org. And Fayetteville Brain Injury Support Group Meets from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Kiwanis Recreation Center. You can contact Ella Morales for more information at 486-1101. Those are the support groups for today.
Okay. Here are letters to the editor. Actually, there's only one letter today. The title of which is Making Ramsey Street Ugly. Am I the only city taxpayer enraged by the uglification project along Ramsey Street? It is senseless to spray vegetation and trees under wires and leave them dead and brown. It does no good. Cut it down. It's a shame and disgrace to drive along a pretty street and see large stretches of brown plants and trees. Please stop doing this. Either take the time and energy to remove it or don't do anything to it, because the way it is being handled is wrong. How long does it take for a dead 6-foot pine tree to go away? Years. I'm sure that our city council members are smart enough to come up with a more sensible way to remove unwanted vegetation. Makes me wonder if any of them drive or live along Ramsey Street. I'm sure Kings Grant residents aren't happy with it coming almost to the entrance of the subdivision. Please think about this and make some changes in this program. This does nothing for the appearance of Fayetteville. And that letter was from Yvonne Saunders, who lives in Fayetteville.
What to expect in the confirmation battle by Kevin Frecking, the Associated Press, Washington. The coming battle over a Supreme Court nominee promises to be a bruising one. Republicans are eager for conservatives to gain a firm majority on the court. Democrats are voicing alarm about what the new justice could mean for charged issues such as abortion rights and gay rights. The stakes are enormous, and advocacy groups that don't have to unveil their donors are spending heavily to shape the fight. President Donald Trump's top contenders for the vacancy appear to be federal appeals judges Amy Coney Barrett, Thomas Hardiman, Brett Kavanaugh, and Raymond Kethledge. Of course, we know that Brett Kavanaugh was the one selected last night. Trump planned to announce his pick Monday night. Regardless of his choice, it's likely that the closely divided Senate will be holding a momentous confirmation vote just weeks before the midterm election. A look at what to expect. Finding the votes. Republicans may have a narrower margin for error than they did when the Senate confirmed Trump's first Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, by a vote of 54 to 45 in April 2017. Democratic Senator Doug Jones of Alabama has replaced Republican Senator Luther Strange, cutting the GOP Senate majority to 51 to 49. Meanwhile, Republican Senator John McCain of Arizona is battling brain cancer and has not been back to the Capitol since December. That increases the focus on two Republicans, Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Both support a woman's right to have an abortion and will be looking for assurances that the nominee would not overturn the Roe v. Wade decision establishing abortion rights. Trump pledged in 2016 that he will be putting pro-life justices on the court. On the Democratic side, the focus will be on Senators Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Joe Donnelly of Indiana, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. All three voted to confirm Gorsuch and are up for re-election in states that Trump won handedly. Whatever they decide will upset a large group of voters in their home states. If Collins and Murkowski vote no and Democrats all vote no, the nomination will be blocked. If McCain were to miss the vote, only one GOP defection would be needed to block the nomination if all Democrats were opposed. Old wounds. Democrats are still stinging from Republicans refusing to even grant a hearing to President Barack Obama's choice to serve on the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland. They're calling on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky, to wait until after the November election to schedule a hearing and vote. McConnell has rejected that possibility, saying the decision to not fill the vacancy under Obama was prefaced on it being a presidential election year. Democrats say McConnell is being hypocritical in moving forward with the nomination. Now, that argument won't sway Republicans. Their strategy could stiffen Democratic resolve to oppose the nominee. Liberal advocacy groups are challenging Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, to keep the Democrats united.
Okay. Here's something about the 44th Medical week. Okay. Colonel Paula C. Lodi thought it fitting that her change of command be held with relatively short notice at Fort Bragg. After all, in her 2+ years at the helm of the 44th Medical Brigade, the unit thrived under pressure. While juggling worldwide and domestic response missions, the brigade and its subordinate units made 18 deployments to contingency operations with Lodi in charge, including deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait and Syria, and humanitarian relief efforts in the Caribbean following Hurricane Maria last year. But on Monday it was Lodi herself rushing to the next mission. She was due to report to her new job in Army Medical Command the same day she relinquished command at Fort Bragg. Before she left, Lodi relinquished command of the 44th Medical Brigade, the Army's largest medical brigade, to Colonel Kimberly A. Aiello. Lieutenant General Paul J. LaCamera, the commanding general of the 18th Airborne Corps and Fort Bragg, who oversaw the change of command, said the brigade is known for exceeding standards. If you've been associated with the 18th Airborne Corps at all in the last 2 years, you know firsthand the reputation and skill of the 44th Medical Brigade, the complexity of their missions, the professionalism of their organization at every level, and the care they pour into every endeavor is quite frankly magnificent and inspiring. LaCamera said the size alone of the brigade could be daunting, with 38 subordinate units and overlapping deployments and ongoing organizational restructuring. Lodi provided the brigade with an innovative approach to problem solving, LaCamera said, and a clear sense of purpose. Before the ceremony, LaCamera awarded the Legion of Merit to Lodi and a certificate of appreciation to her husband, retired Command Sergeant Major Henry R. Vance III. Lodi was the first female commander in the history of the 44th Medical Brigade. She will next serve as Director of Healthcare Operations at Army Medical Command. Aiello is more than ready to be her replacement, LaCamera said. He welcomed Aiello, who previously served in the 44th Medical Brigade and its subordinate units at Fort Bragg, and her husband, Colonel Larry Aiello, who will soon become Chief of Staff for Task Force Dragon at Fort Bragg. Aiello said she was impressed by the professionalism and mission-focused ready-now mindset of the brigade and placed a similar focus and direction for the unit and its soldiers. We will continue in the same vein of the past 2 years, she said.
And this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. When making charitable contributions, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call at area code 910-672-1600. Your radio hosts this morning are
Tina Beatty
and Robert Dean, and we are proud to serve you today. Pompeo pushes peace talks in Afghanistan visit by Matthew Lee, the Associated Press, Kabul, Afghanistan. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo used an unannounced trip to Afghanistan on Monday to step up the Trump administration's calls for peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban. Flying into Kabul after visiting Vietnam, Pompeo made the appeal in meetings with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah Abdullah. The United States will support, facilitate, and participate in these discussions, Pompeo later told journalists, stressing that any talks would be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned. Pompeo added, "The region of the world are all tired of what are taking place here in the same way that the Afghan people are no longer interested in seeing war." However, it remains unclear if the Taliban would take such an offer after nearly 17 years of war. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan following the September 11th terror attacks by al-Qaeda, which the Taliban government at the time had harbored. Since then, the insurgents have repeatedly rejected such calls, demanding direct talks with the United States. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani had extended a recent holiday ceasefire in hopes of encouraging the militants to come to the bargaining table. The Taliban rejected the offer and resumed attacks. The Taliban have seized control of several districts across the country in recent years and launched near-daily attacks, mainly targeting security forces. An increasingly powerful Islamic State affiliate has also stepped up attacks in recent months. Speaking at Monday's news conference, Ghani praised the Trump administration's South Asia strategy, which included sending more American forces and pressuring neighboring Pakistan to do more to stop militants coming over its border into Afghanistan. Because of this strategy and the conditions-based nature of it, we, the members of the government, have been able to take bold steps outside the box and articulate an agenda of peace that is truly comprehensive and ask for engagement, Ghani said, citing the recent ceasefire. Pompeo also added, perhaps optimistically given Afghanistan's long history of resisting foreign forces, the Taliban were beginning to see that they cannot wait us out. Pompeo left Afghanistan for the United Arab Emirates, where he will meet Abu Dhabi's powerful crown prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, a staunch U.S. ally, amid his country's war in Yemen. The UAE is highly suspicious of Iran and welcomed President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world powers.
Okay. And this is state news today, state briefs actually. Franklin Graham sells Trump referencing Pray for 45 shirts. From Charlotte, for $15.99, that's $15.99, followers of Billy Graham's son Franklin can get a t-shirt urging people to pray for the 45th president. The Reverend Franklin Graham says on Facebook he was inspired to sell the Pray for 45 shirts after seeing news coverage of shirts with the slogan Impeach 45. Echoing Trump's signature campaign motto, Graham writes, "Prayer can make America great." The shirts are for sale on the website of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. The younger Graham, who leads his late father's namesake association, has been an outspoken Trump ally and wrote in a recent memoir that he thanks God that Trump was elected. Okay, and this one's from Lexington. A man has been arrested after a woman was shot to death at a home. The Davidson County Sheriff's Office said in a news release that deputies were called to a home outside Lexington around 7:30 a.m. on Sunday. Sheriff David Grice said 45-year-old Gregory Laverne Kennedy of Lexington has been charged with murder. Deputies called to the home found 50-year-old Wanda Taylor dead from a gunshot wound. Grice said Kennedy lives in the home with Wanda Taylor's sister. From Lexington again, sheriff's deputies have accused a woman of biting her boyfriend after he changed the channel on a television she was watching. The Winston-Salem Journal reports the Davidson County Sheriff's Office said the man told investigators 21-year-old Abby Nicole Saunders attacked him Saturday when he went into a bedroom to change the channel on the television. Deputies say the man sustained bite marks on his neck, right forearm, and on the inside of his left arm. He also had a red mark on his chest where investigators said Saunders hit him. Online records show Saunders is in the Davidson County Jail, but it's not known if she has an attorney. From High Point, police have charged a woman with second-degree murder in connection with a crash that killed a man. High Point police told local news outlets 32-year-old Serenity Love Givens of Greensboro is charged in the weekend crash which killed 28-year-old Joey L. DeWeese of High Point. Investigators say the car, driven by Givens, was heading north in the southbound lanes of Business Interstate 85 when it hit DeWeese's car Saturday. DeWeese was taken to Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center in Winston-Salem, where police say he died from his injuries on Sunday. Givens was initially charged with driving while impaired, felony inflicting serious injury with a motor vehicle, and driving while impaired. She's in the Guilford County Jail under $275,000 bail. It's not known if she has an attorney. And the last one today is from Durham. Officials say a grease blockage has led to a wastewater spill. The city of Durham said in a news release that about 800 gallons of wastewater flowed into a tributary of New Hope Creek from private sewer cleanouts. The city said the overflow occurred around 10:15 a.m. Sunday and lasted nearly 3 hours. The city said the area affected by the overflow has been cleaned and there is no apparent threat to people or property. City officials notified the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Division of Water Resources.
On the trade war is Changing Minds by Jonathan Matisse and Steve Peoples, the Associated Press, Nashville, Tennessee. Jimmy Tosh's sprawling hog farm in rural Tennessee is an unlikely battleground in the fight for control of the U.S. Senate. Yet his 15,000 acres, 6,000 hectares, 2 hours west of Nashville, showcase the practical risk of President Donald Trump's trade policies and a political threat to red state Republican Senate candidates such as Tennessee's Marsha Blackburn. Tosh, a third-generation farmer who almost always votes Republican, said he's voting this fall for Blackburn's Democratic opponent, former Governor Phil Bredesen, in part because Trump's trade wars are hurting his family business, a sizable one with some 400 employees and 30,000 pigs. The cost of steel needed for new barns is up, Tosh said, and the expanding pork market stands to suffer under new tariffs. This tariff situation has got me very, very, very concerned, Tosh told the Associated Press. I just think Bredesen would be better on that situation. He said Blackburn has shifted toward the center on tariffs, but in my opinion, it's a little late and not far enough. Similar concerns are roiling high-profile Senate contests in Missouri, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and North Dakota, and forcing GOP candidates to answer for the trade policies of a Republican president they have backed on almost every other major issue. In 2016, populist attacks against free trade defined Trump's political rise. Now, as he sparks an international trade war 4 months before the midterm elections, few policies could be more problematic for Trump's allies in pivotal Senate contests. The Trump administration imposed a 25% tax on $34 billion worth of Chinese imports on Friday, and China is retaliating with taxes on an equal amount of U.S. products, including soybeans, electric cars, and pork. The administration has penalized steel and aluminum imports from allies such as Canada and Mexico, leading to retaliation against American-made products such as blue jeans, motorcycles, and whiskey. The tension has reshaped the race to replace retiring Senator Bob Corker, a Republican from Tennessee. Blackburn, an 8-term congresswoman, has been one of the president's biggest boosters for the past 2 years, yet with the business community up in arms, she's dramatically softened her support for Trump's trade policies, at least. We fully appreciate that some of these countries have had a trade war against us for years. Certainly China would be in that list, and it's time that somebody really stands up, Blackburn told AP. But with that said, it does cause us tremendous concern, just grave concern. Still, Blackburn opposed a proposal by Corker that would have given Congress new authority to check the president's trade moves. She called Corker's approach a little bit too broad. Instead, Blackburn helped write a letter urging Trump's Commerce Secretary to reconsider broad tariffs so as to avoid harm to Tennessee's economy.
Okay. Don't know what not much. Not time for the TV schedule yet. This is from San Diego. And this picture here of a man from Honduras recounts his separation from his child at the border during a news conference at the Annunciation House in El Paso, Texas. This man's name is Christian. He has his hand over his face. More than 50 immigrant children under 5 will be reunited with their parents by Tuesday's court-ordered deadline for action by Trump administration, and the families will then be released into the U.S., a government attorney said Monday. That's only about half of the 100 or so toddlers covered by the order. At a court hearing, Justice Department lawyer Sarah Fabian acknowledged the government wouldn't meet the deadline for all the children, citing a variety of reasons, including that the parents of some of the youngsters have already been deported. Fabian said that 54 children will be joined with their parents by the end of Tuesday at locations across the country, and that an additional 5 were undergoing final background checks. It was the first time the government indicated whether the parents and children would be released or detained together. They will be set free in the U.S. pending the outcome of their immigration cases, which can take several years. Fabian didn't say why they were being released, but U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has little space to hold families. ICE has 3 family detention centers with room for about 3,000 people in all, and the places are already at near capacity. The Trump administration is trying to line up thousands more beds at military bases. American Civil Liberties Union attorney Lee Gallant told reporters he was both pleased and disappointed with the government's progress toward meeting the deadline. Tomorrow there will hopefully be more than 50 babies and toddlers reunited with their parents, and that is obviously an enormous victory, he said. But he said those who remain split from their parents are in for a long process. U.S. District Judge Dana Sabro ordered both sides back in court on Tuesday to give another update. The ACLU was drawing up a proposal to shorten the wait for the remaining children. Gallant said some procedures such as DNA testing, fingerprinting, and requests for other information were designed for releasing children to distant relatives, not to parents. More than 2,000 children in all were separated from their parents by U.S. immigration authorities at the border this spring, before President Donald Trump reversed course on June the 20th amid an international outcry and said families should remain together. Late last month, Sabro, an appointee of Republican President George W. Bush, set a 14-day deadline to reunite children under 5 with their parents, and a 30-day deadline for older children. The 30-day deadline is up on July the 26th. Monday's hearing set the stage for a dramatic day of reunifications on Tuesday across the country. Though they are likely to occur largely outside public view, Fabian did not disclose where the reunions would take place. As for most of the rest of the under 5 children who have yet to be reunited with their families, Fabian said that their parents have already been released into the U.S., have been deported, or are behind bars on criminal charges. One child has not been matched with a parent, Fabian said. The ACLU identified him as a 3-year-old boy. Poor fella.
Centuries of mythos surround Salem's House at 7 Gables by James F. Lee, The Washington Post. A nice mix of fiction and nonfiction. That's how Bill Jostat of Amaronic, New York, described the House of the 7 Gables in Salem, Massachusetts, after finishing his tour. It's been a part of the folklore of our country. And that needs to be kept in mind when visiting this house made famous by Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1851 novel of the same name. The house is in many ways a reimagining of fact and fiction. My wife Carol and I visited the Gables recently as it was celebrating its 350th anniversary. I grew up in Salem, so it was a homecoming of sorts. The house was built in 1668 on the Salem waterfront by John Turner, a sea captain turned successful merchant, and for more than a century stayed in the Turner family. As their wealth grew, Turner and his son, John Turner II, converted the post-medieval structure into a comfortable 7-gabled Georgian mansion with elegant paneling, moldings, and expensive wallpaper and furniture. Most of the interior today reflects this Georgian style. Samuel Ingersoll purchased the house in 1782 and continued remodeling, even removing 4 gables. In 1811, his daughter, Susanna Ingersoll, inherited the property. Her second cousin, Hawthorne, was a frequent guest. In the early 20th century, the house had run through a succession of owners. Wealthy philanthropist Caroline Emerton purchased the house in 1908, restoring it to its current seven-gable glory. Emerton's intentions for the house were twofold. First, she opened it as a museum, furnishing some of the rooms with Georgian-era antiques to reflect the Turners' ownership of the house, while also arranging other rooms to suggest scenes from Hawthorne's novel. Then she used museum admission fees to fund a settlement association, a philanthropy based on the work of social reformer and activist Jane Addams, in this case, to assist the many Polish immigrants in the neighborhood in adapting to an American way of life. They learned handicrafts, dancing, civics, and practical skills. Photos of early settlement work can be seen in the waiting area at the entrance. Our enthusiastic guide, Han Morley, greeted us at the house, leading us into a small dark kitchen with an enormous fireplace, the only room in the house restored to its 17th century appearance. Our heads practically touched the ceiling. A chowder pot, tea kettle, and frying pan were hanging from hooks in the hearth. The empty pot alone weighed 50 pounds. Adjacent to the kitchen is the scent shop. I recognize this as the purely fictional place where Hawthorne's Obsever opened a store in the opening pages of his novel. We next emerged into the bright dining room, where large double-sashed windows let in the late morning light to illuminate the painted moldings and fabric wallpaper. This room reflects the style of John Turner II, the wealthiest of the house's owners. Canton porcelain dishes on the table and paintings of Macao on the walls show the link between Salem and the China trade. Most of the furniture on display is not original to the occupants except for a few pieces. As to how the correct period furniture was acquired, Morley said that Emerton had access to inventories of the Turners and was able to acquire similar furnishings. The hidden door in the dining room leads to a narrow staircase that twists and turns up to the second floor. This secret staircase was just wide enough for my shoulders to fit between the brick walls. Carol, much smaller than I, had no problem nimbly climbing the stairs leading to a second-floor garret. When I was a kid, there were all kinds of stories about why the staircase was there. Was it a refuge for accused witches or a stop on the Underground Railroad? I was disappointed to learn that Emerton created this space during the reconstruction of the house as an attraction for visitors. From the garret, we dug through a hobbit-sized door and entered the attic. This is one of the oldest domestic locations in America, Morley said. All of the skeletal beams, the majority of the bricks in the chimney, and insulation is actually from 350 years ago. This attic was once the sleeping place of Joan Sullivan, a Gaelic-speaking indentured servant to the first John Turner.
Wow. Okay, what should we read now? We're down to two articles, both of which are quite large. This is about trade with China, and this is about McConnell on missions to reshape the courts. So, well, we've got 12 minutes or 10 minutes before we have to do the TV schedule. So I'll read you some of this and try not to fall asleep, okay, before the TV schedule and all. Okay, this is from Washington. President Donald Trump's trade battle with China will exacerbate relations with Beijing that are already fraying on several fronts as the U.S. takes a more confrontational stance and an increasingly powerful China stands its ground. The gloves came off Friday as the world's two largest economies imposed tariffs on billions of dollars of each other's goods amid a spiraling dispute over technology. It comes at a time when Washington needs China's help in ending its nuclear standoff with North Korea. Trump's much vaunted personal rapport with Chinese President Xi Jinping, whom he hosted at his Mar-a-Lago resort 3 months after taking office, won't help patch up differences, experts and former officials say. The notion that there's a personal relationship which will somehow supersede China's strategic interests and the well-being of the Communist Party, including its ability to manage its own economy consistent with its political interests, is absurd, said Daniel Russell, top U.S. diplomat for East Asia under President Barack Obama. There's no scenario in which an affectionate relationship, real or imagined, is going to stay Xi's hand, Russell said. Troubles in the bilateral relationship go beyond trade. China has chafed about the scope of U.S. relations with Taiwan. U.S. complaints about its construction of military outposts on islands in the South China Sea, tougher screening of Chinese investment in the U.S., visa restrictions, and accusations that it's the main source of opioids. If not new, these are now deepening sources of tension between Washington and Beijing. Even as Trump has sought to cultivate his relationship with the increasingly dominant Chinese leader, his administration has chosen to confront an increasingly defiant China on pretty much all of them. It also identified China, along with Russia, as a threat in the most recent U.S. national security strategy. In response, Beijing is hanging tough. China has made it abundantly clear that it will never surrender to blackmail or coercion, Chinese state news agency Xinhua said Friday. To what extent the trade tensions bleed into other aspects of the U.S.-China relationship, which has retained a mostly upward trajectory since the normalization of ties 4 decades ago, remains to be seen. But Mike Pillsbury, director of the Center for Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute, said U.S.-China relations are headed into uncharted waters. Recently returned from a visit to China, Pillsbury said he was told by government officials and businessmen that they were confused about what Trump administration wanted them to do to get the U.S. to ease the trade tensions. They threatened to back off assisting the U.S. nuclear talks with North Korea. They explicitly said that, according to Pillsbury, who has written 3 books on China and has advised the Trump administration. They said, we will help you, the U.S., less with North Korea if you start a trade war with us on July the 6th. Pretty clear, huh? China has in fact already distanced itself somewhat from its significant cooperation with the U.S. on North Korea. After supporting tough UN sanctions and scaling back trade with North after it ramped up nuclear and missile tests last year, Beijing has eased restrictions on its neighbor. That shift began after Trump in March abruptly decided to hold a summit with Kim Jong-un. Once again, China has again focused on rekindling its traditional alliance with Pyongyang. Xi has met Kim 3 times this year. Abraham Denmark, a former senior U.S. defense official on Asia, said China has welcomed Trump's sudden shift from confrontational to diplomacy with North Korea, and also his decision to hold large-scale military exercises with close U.S. ally South Korea. Yet China also views what happens with North Korea through the lens of the geopolitical rivalry between the U.S. and China. He said North Korea long served as a buffer against America's expanding its reach in Northeast Asia to the China border. This goes on and on, this article, so if you got any bits you can read from that, because it'll be time to start the TV schedule in a bit here.
At home in the Surreal, New York. The weirder it gets, the more Lakeith Stanfield looks right at home. It was Stanfield as the body-snatched Andrew Hayworth, personifying the nightmare of Jordan Peele's Get Out. Donald Glover's Atlanta is cosmically like a daisical, pot-smoking philosopher. Darius is the epitome of the show's freewheeling surrealism. And in Boots Riley's comic and caustic social satire, Sorry to Bother You, Stanfield is the entry-level telemarketer Cassius Cash Green, whose swift rise introduces him to a darkly dystopian world. Since his acclaimed feature film debut in 2013's Short Term 12, Stanfield, 26, has become one of the most arresting, unpredictable, and in-demand actors in Hollywood. He has played Jimmy Lee Jackson in Selma, Snoop Dogg in Straight Outta Compton, Miles Davis in Miles Ahead, and Chandler in Jay-Z's Friends-style music video Moonlight. And even his soberer parts, Stanfield has a disarmingly laid-back, unflappable presence, like his antenna is tuned to a different frequency than everyone else. Glover, the Atlanta creator, vividly remembers first meeting Stanfield. "He barely talked to me," Glover said in an email. "He was not concerned with getting the job at all. He was already living in a different dimension than the rest of us." Sorry to Bother You, which opens Friday on the heels of ecstatic reviews, Stanfield may have found the best feature film vehicle yet for his particular dimension. The movie is a years-long passion project for Riley, the Bay Area hip-hop pioneer and activist, who along the way also spoke to Glover and Peele about the role. It holds the movie together, which is why I picked Lakeith, because there's all this crazy stuff happening, but you have to believe that character, says Riley. It's an actor that's like, "Oh, this is how I show I'm scared. This is how I show I'm confused." That wouldn't work. Lakeith doesn't care about what his face looks like. He just gets to that emotion. In the film, Cassius is catapulted into overnight success once he begins using what an older employee, played by Danny Glover, terms as your white voice. Stanfield's rise, though, has been predicated on remaining himself. "It's a hard thing to be yourself and be available," Stanfield said in a recent interview on Soho. "It's much easier to use the white voice, which I've also done, but at some point I've become exhausted with it, and I have to say what's on my mind and do what I feel. Part of that is the reason why people put cameras on me." Stanfield's breakthrough came via Destin Daniel Cretton's college short film, Short Term 12, which 5 years later became the feature about a foster care facility for at-risk teens.
Well done. Speed reading. Okay, television schedule. ABC, the middle, blackish, The Last Defense, which is the only new one. CBS, NCIS High Tide, Bull Already Gone, NCIS New Orleans, all reruns. WRAL, which is NBC, America's Got Talent, which is new. World of Dance, which is new. WUNC PBS, 8 o'clock, 10 Streets That Changed, 9 o'clock, No Passport Required, Frontline, Trump's Takeover. A&E, the First 48 at 8 o'clock, First 48 again at 9 o'clock. The Born Behind Bars, number 10, at 10 o'clock, and the First 48 at 11 o'clock, and none of those are new. AMC at 8 o'clock, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. It was made in 2011. It has Robert Downey Jr., Jude Lord, and Numi Rapace. It's a good one. It's just completely different from anything you're used to. So be prepared for that. Discovery Channel, Deadliest Catch, rerun at 8, new one at 9, Expedition Unknown at 10. Okay, well, down we go. TBS, The Big Bang, all the way across. Turner Classic Movies, Key Largo, a film made in 1948 with Humphrey Bogart. And then at 10, Wise Blood, 1979 movie with two people I've never heard of, Brad Dourif and Amy Wright. So on TLC, Outdoor, whatever in the world that is, I don't know. And this concludes our reading of the Fayetteville Observer. Your radio hosts have been
Robert Bean
and Tina Beatty. Please tune in at 1 p.m. when you can hear an hour of the Paraglide, at 2 for a tape broadcast of a Southern Pines pilot. At 4 you can hear Off the Bookshelf. Additionally, you will hear a rebroadcast of today's Fayetteville Observer tonight at 9. We will now join the Raleigh Network for additional news of interest. Thank you for tuning us in. We've enjoyed being with you this morning. We hope you have a wonderful day.